The Valkyrie merchant vessel Shimmering Dawn had been floating dead in space for 3 long cycles. The engines had failed without warning, and now 40 crew members waited in the cold darkness, hoping someone would answer their distress signal. Captain Zorath stood on the bridge, his reptilian eyes scanning the empty void. His scales, normally bright green, had dulled with stress. The Valkyrie were proud warriors, but even warriors could not fight the silence of space. Their food was running low. Their air recyclers were failing. Death was coming slowly, and there was nothing he could do about it. When the sensors detected an approaching vessel, Zorath felt hope for the first time in days. But that hope turned to confusion when he saw the ship. It was small, barely larger than an escape pod, and it flew no flag. There were no markings to identify which species owned it or which government it served. The ship docked with a gentle thud. The airlock hissed and opened. Zorath gathered his senior officers around him, ready to greet their rescuers with proper dignity. A single figure stepped through the doorway. Zorath blinked his large eyes several times, certain he was seeing things wrong. The creature before him was small, reaching only to his chest. It had soft pink skin with no scales, no armor, no natural protection of any kind. Its teeth were flat and dull, useless for combat. Its eyes sat strangely close together on its face, giving it a permanently startled look. The creature wore simple clothing, faded and worn from use. It carried a heavy bag over one shoulder. It looked around the bridge with calm brown eyes, seemingly unimpressed by the massive reptilian warriors surrounding it. "I picked up your distress signal," the creature said. Its voice was soft but steady. "Name's Cole. Figured you could use some help." Vesha, the young navigator, let out a sharp laugh. She was the youngest of the crew, barely past her first molting, and had not yet learned to hide her emotions. "This is our rescue?" One soft little creature with a bag of tools. Several other crew members chuckled. Even Zorath had to admit the situation seemed absurd. They had hoped for a fleet, or at least a proper repair vessel. Instead, they got this fragile-looking thing that seemed like it would break if someone breathed on it too hard. Cole did not react to the laughter. He simply walked past them toward the engine room, moving with quiet confidence. "Your hyperdrive coil is cracked," he said without looking back. "I can smell the coolant leaking from here." Zorath followed, more curious than hopeful. "Our engineers have spent 3 cycles trying to fix the engines. They are the best-trained specialists in the Valkyrie fleet. What makes you think you can succeed where they failed?" Cole reached the engine room and set down his bag. The massive machinery towered above him, built for creatures twice his size. He ran his small hands along the metal casing, feeling for something only he could sense. "Your engineers are trained on Valkyrie systems," Cole said. "But this coil was manufactured on Titan Station, in the Sol system. I helped design it." He pulled a tool from his bag and began working. The Valkyrie bought a shipment of these coils about 10 years back. Good equipment, but tricky if you don't know the quirks. Zorath watched as the small creature crawled into spaces that should have been too tight for anyone. Cole worked with his hands in ways the captain had never seen before. Human fingers, it turned out, were remarkably flexible. They could grip, twist, and manipulate with a precision that Valkyrie claws could never match. Hours passed. The crew took turns watching the human work. He did not stop to rest. He did not stop to eat. He simply kept working, moving from one broken system to the next with methodical patience. At one point, a power conduit needed to be held in place while Cole rewired the connections. The conduit was live, carrying enough electrical charge to kill most species instantly. Cole grabbed it with his bare hands. Vesha screamed, but Cole did not die. His hands turned red, then began to blister. The smell of burning flesh filled the air. Yet his grip never wavered. His face twisted with pain, but he kept working, kept rewiring, kept pushing through. When he finally released the conduit, his palms were raw and damaged. He looked at them for a moment, then wrapped them in cloth from his bag and continued working. "How?" Desha whispered. "How are you still alive?" Cole shrugged. "Humans are stubborn. We don't like giving up." 12 hours after he arrived, Cole connected the final wire. The engine hummed. Lights flickered on throughout the ship. The air recyclers coughed and began working again. The shimmering dawn was alive once more. The crew erupted in cheers. Valkyrie warriors, who had laughed at Cole, now looked at him with something approaching awe. This small, soft creature had done what their best engineers could not. Zorath approached Cole, who was packing his tools with burned and bandaged hands. The captain lowered his massive head in a gesture of respect. "I owe you my life," Zorath said. "I owe you the lives of my entire crew. How can we repay you?" Cole zipped his bag closed and stood up. "Some fuel for my ship would be nice. Maybe some food if you can spare it. Nothing fancy. That is all? You save 40 lives and ask only for fuel and food? That's all I need." Cole smiled. It was a strange expression on his alien face, but somehow warm. "Just trying to help where I can." As Cole walked back toward the airlock, Desha caught up with him. She had been the first to laugh at him, and shame colored her scales dark blue. "I mocked you," she said quietly. "I am sorry. I did not understand what you were." Cole stopped and looked at her. Up close, she could see the lines on his face, the small scars that marked his skin. There was a deep one on his neck, barely visible above his collar. Another on his forearm, old and faded. This creature had seen violence. He had suffered. Yet here he was, helping strangers for nothing more than fuel and food. "What am I?" Cole repeated her question with a small laugh. "Just a guy who knows his way around machines. Nothing special." But Desha knew that was not true. She had seen him hold fire in his hands and refuse to let go. She had seen him work for 12 hours without rest. She had seen something in his eyes when he looked at the struggling crew, something that drove him to help even when there was nothing in it for him. "What is your species called?" she asked. "Human," Cole said. "From a planet called Earth." Desha had never heard of Earth. Neither had anyone else on the ship. But as she watched the small human return to his tiny vessel and drift away into the stars, she made a mental note to find out everything she could about this strange species. Something told her the galaxy would be hearing more about humans very soon. Word traveled fast in the Kethrani expanse. Traders talked. Merchants gossiped. And within a few weeks, everyone seemed to know about the mysterious repair specialist who had saved the shimmering dawn. Cole found himself in high demand. He moved from station to station, fixing things that other mechanics said could not be fixed. He repaired ancient jump drives that had been silent for decades. He brought dead power cores back to life. He made broken machines work again with nothing but simple tools and endless patience. He never asked for much in return. A little fuel, some food, passage to wherever he was going next. The aliens he helped found this strange. In the galaxy, everything had a price. Everyone wanted something. But this human seemed content with almost nothing. Cole preferred it that way. He liked moving. He liked staying busy. When he was working, he did not have to think about the past. He did not have to remember the things he had lost or the people he had failed. The machines were honest. They broke, and he fixed them. Simple his travels eventually brought him to Orbital 7. Orbital 7 was not a nice place. It was a massive space station at the edge of contested territory where laws were suggestions and violence was common. Pirates docked there. Smugglers made deals in dark corners. Criminals of every species came to Orbital 7 when they needed to disappear. The station was controlled by the Syndicate of the Void, a criminal organization led by the Dreth. The Dreth were a brutal species. They stood over 8 feet tall, with thick gray skin and bodies enhanced with mechanical parts. They had conquered 12 star systems through fear and violence. They answered to no government. They feared nothing. Their leader was called Vexer. He was the largest and most cybernetically enhanced of all the Dreth. Half his face was metal. One arm was a weapon. His eyes glowed red with artificial light. He ruled Orbital 7 from the shadows, and nothing happened on the station without his knowledge. Vexer had been watching Cole for some time. The human skills were impressive. More importantly, the humans seemed to have no loyalties. No government protected him. No species claimed him. He was alone, vulnerable, and valuable. Vexer decided to make Cole an offer he could not refuse. Cole was sitting alone in a rundown cantina when they came for him. The bar was dim and smoky, filled with aliens of various species, drinking strange liquids and minding their own business. Cole had a glass of something brown in front of him. He was not sure what it was, but it tasted close enough to whiskey. The door opened, and 6 Dreth warriors walked in. The cantina went silent. Every patron suddenly found somewhere else to look. The Dreth were not subtle. Their heavy boots shook the floor with each step. Their cybernetic parts hummed with power. They carried weapons that could punch holes through steel. They surrounded Cole's table. The leader was a scarred veteran named Krath. He placed one massive clawed hand on Cole's shoulder, pressing down hard enough to make the chair creak. "The Syndicate has use for your skills," Krath growled. His voice was deep and mechanical, filtered through a throat implant. "You will come with us." Cole took a slow sip of his drink. He did not look up. "Thanks for the offer, but I'm not looking for work right now." Krath's claws dug in harder. They pierced the fabric of Cole's jacket, drawing small drops of blood. "This is not a request, soft one. You will serve the Syndicate, or you will die." Still Cole did not move. He set his glass down gently. "I've had a long day. I really don't want any trouble." The Dreth laughed. It was an ugly sound, like metal scraping against metal. Krath leaned down, bringing his scarred face close to Cole's ear. "What can a tiny creature like you do against 6 Dreth warriors? You have no claws, no armor, no weapons. You are soft and weak and alone." He squeezed harder, and Cole winced. "Come quietly, and we might let you keep all your limbs." Cole sighed. It was the sigh of a man who had been in this situation before. A man who knew what was coming and wished it did not have to happen. "I tried to be nice," he said quietly. Then he moved on. No one in the cantina saw exactly what happened. It was too fast. One moment, Cole was sitting in his chair. The next moment, 4 Dreth were on the ground, unconscious or groaning in pain. Cole had used their own size against them. In the tight space between tables, the massive warriors could not maneuver. They got in each other's way. Cole did not. He was small and quick, slipping between them like water through rocks. He knew exactly where to hit. Pressure points. Nerve clusters. The gaps in their cybernetic armor where flesh met metal. He struck with precision that came from years of training and experience. The 5th Dreth tried to raise his weapon. Cole took it from him with a move so fast it looked like magic. He pressed the weapon under the warrior's chin and held him still. The 6th Dreth ran. He simply turned and fled through the cantina door, not looking back. Krath stared up at Cole with wide, disbelieving eyes. His weapon was pressed against his own throat. He had never been defeated so quickly. He had never been defeated at all. "Tell Vexer I'm not interested," Cole said. His voice was calm, but there was something cold in his eyes now. something dangerous, and tell him to leave me alone. I really don't want to have this conversation again." He released Krath and stepped back. The Dreth scrambled to his feet and retreated, dragging his unconscious companions with him. Cole straightened his jacket. He noticed the tear where Krath's claws had cut through and frowned. He liked that jacket. He walked to the bar, placed some credits down for his drink, and headed for the door. The cantina remained silent. Behind the bar, an old Kethrani female named Mora polished a glass with shaking hands. She had owned this cantina for 60 years. She had seen fights. She had seen killings. She had never seen anything like what just happened. "Wait," she called out. Cole stopped at the door. "What are you?" Mora asked. "I've seen every species in this sector. I've never seen anything move like that." Cole looked back at her. In the dim light, she could see fresh blood on his shoulder where Krath's claws had dug in. He did not seem to notice or care. "I'm human," he said. "From a planet called Earth. Never heard of it." Cole smiled, but it was a tired smile. A sad smile. "Most people haven't. We're kind of new to all this." He pushed through the door and disappeared into the crowded corridors of Orbital 7. Mora stood behind her bar for a long time, thinking. She had survived on this station by knowing which species to fear and which to ignore. She had always thought humans were fragile creatures, easy prey in a dangerous galaxy. Now she was not so sure. She reached under the bar and pulled out an old communication device. She had friends in many places: traders, merchants, information brokers. If anyone knew more about humans and their mysterious planet, they would find out. Something told her this information would be valuable very soon. The Galactic Council chambers were ancient. They had stood for 10,000 years, a place where representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss matters of importance. The walls were carved from living crystal that glowed with soft light. The ceiling rose so high it disappeared into shadow. Counselor Yeleth of the Honorary stood at her research station, staring at her screens with all 4 of her eyes. She had not slept in 3 days. She had not eaten in 2. What she had discovered was too important, too disturbing, to allow for rest. The Honori were an old species. They had been traveling the stars when most other races were still living in caves. Their greatest pride was the archive, a vast collection of data on every known species in the galaxy. Every intelligent life form had been cataloged, studied, and classified. Or so Yeleth had thought. The reports from Orbital 7 had caught her attention. A single creature defeating 6 Dreth warriors in hand-to-hand combat. The species was listed as human, origin planet Earth. Yeleth had never heard of either. She searched the archive and found almost nothing. Earth was listed as a distant planet in an unexplored region of the Outer Rim. The last survey had been conducted nearly 5,000 years ago, and the findings had been unremarkable. Primitive life forms. Harsh environment. No value for colonization or trade. The planet had been ignored ever since. 5,000 years was a long time. A lot could change. Yeleth requested updated scans from the Long-Range Observation Network. When the data came back, she nearly fell out of her chair. Earth was not a primitive backwater anymore. The planet blazed with artificial light visible from space. Satellites orbited it in thick clusters. Structures dotted the surface of its moon. Radio signals poured out of the system in endless stream, and the life form reading showed nearly 8 billion humans living there. 8 billion. Yeleth began digging deeper. She pulled information from every source she could find. Trader reports, survey data, the scattered observations of the few ships that had passed through that remote sector. Piece by piece, a picture emerged. And it was terrifying. Earth was what the archive classified as a death world. The planet had extreme temperature variations, from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. Its atmosphere contained high levels of oxygen, a gas that was corrosive and toxic to many species. The gravity was crushing by galactic standards. The weather was violent and unpredictable, and the wildlife was nightmarish. Earth was filled with predators. Massive creatures with teeth and claws roamed the land. Venomous insects swarmed in clouds. Parasites invaded the bodies of other creatures and ate them from within. The oceans contained monsters so large they could swallow ships whole. This was the world that humans had evolved on. This was what had shaped them. Yelith read about human biology and felt her 4 hearts beat faster. Humans were persistent predators. Their ancient hunting strategy was to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They could not run fast, but they could run forever. They could track an animal for days, never stopping, never resting, until their target simply gave up and died. Their bodies were designed for endurance. They healed from injuries that would kill most species. Broken bones mended. Torn flesh grew back. They could lose limbs and survive. They could function without sleep for days. They could survive on almost any organic matter for food. They had no natural weapons, so they made their own. First from stone and wood, then from metal, then from chemicals and atoms. They had created weapons that could destroy entire cities in a single flash of light, and they had used them. Yelith read about human history and felt sick. The wars, the violence, the endless conflicts that had shaped their species over thousands of years. Humans had been fighting each other since before they could write. They had perfected the art of killing, to a degree that no other species had matched. But that was not the most disturbing part. The most disturbing part was what happened when humans cared about something. Yelith found accounts of humans performing impossible feats to protect others. A mother lifting a vehicle to save her trapped child. Soldiers charging into certain death to rescue their companions. Ordinary people running into burning buildings. Diving into freezing water, facing armed attackers with their bare hands. All to help complete strangers. The archive had a term for this behavior in other species: protective bonding. It was common among pack animals and family groups. But humans took it to an extreme that bordered on madness. They formed attachments to everything. Their families, yes, but also their friends, their communities, their ideas, their pets, their possessions, even their machines. Once a human decided something belonged to them, they would fight for it with everything they had. The reports from Orbital 7 made sense now. Cole had not attacked the Dreth unprovoked. He had responded to a threat with overwhelming force. And if the reports were accurate, he had shown restraint. He had not killed anyone, but he could have. Yelith spent another day compiling her findings. She checked her data 3 times. She did not want to believe what she was seeing, but the evidence was clear. Finally, she called an emergency session of the council. The great chamber filled with representatives from across the galaxy. The insectoid cricks clicked impatiently. The gaseous vents swirled in their containment fields. The silicon-based dromes sat motionless as statues. Dozens of species, hundreds of individuals, all waiting to hear what was so important. Yelith stood at the central podium and activated her display. "Fellow counselors," she began. "I have discovered a species that poses a significant concern for galactic security. They call themselves humans. They come from a death world called Earth, and I believe we have made a serious mistake in ignoring them." She showed them the data, the death world statistics, the biological capabilities, the history of warfare, the persistence hunting, the protective bonding. The chamber grew quieter with each revelation. "There is currently one known human operating in the Kethrani expanse," Yelith continued. "He has already demonstrated combat abilities that surprised 6 Dreth warriors. He has shown technical skills that saved an entire Valkyrie vessel. And he appears to be acting alone, without support from his species. She paused and looked around the chamber. Earth has 8 billion more like him. They are developing faster than light travel as we speak. Within a generation, perhaps less, they will enter our space in significant numbers. The Dreth representative, a massive female named Kethrus, spoke up. Her voice was harsh with contempt. You expect us to fear these soft creatures? We have conquered 12 star systems. We have crushed species far more dangerous than these humans. Yeleth met her gaze calmly. The Dreth conquer through strength and intimidation. Humans evolved on a world where strength alone means nothing. They survived by being adaptable, cooperative, and relentless. They do not give up. They do not stop. They find ways to win that other species would never consider. She pulled up one final image, a photograph of Earth taken from space. Blue oceans, green land, white clouds. It looked almost peaceful. Do not underestimate them, Yeleth said. Everything we know about survival in a hostile universe, they learned on that one small planet. And they did not merely survive. They thrived. The council session lasted for hours. Arguments erupted. Factions formed. Some wanted to contact Earth immediately. Others wanted to quarantine the entire sector. The Dreth representative stormed out, declaring that her species would handle the human problem their own way. Yeleth watched the chaos and felt a deep unease. She had done her duty. She had warned them. But she suspected it was already too late. Somewhere in the Kethrani expanse, a single human was already changing the balance of power. And he was just the first dot more would follow. Vexer sat in his throne room aboard the Syndicate flagship, his mechanical eye glowing bright red in the darkness. The room was cold and bare, just the way he liked it. Weakness came from comfort. Strength came from discipline. His surviving warriors knelt before him, their heads bowed in shame. Krath, his best enforcer, trembled like a newborn. The message carved into his armor was still visible. The human letters crude but clear. Leave these people alone. Vexer had ruled the Syndicate for 30 years. He had killed his way to the top and stayed there through fear and brutality. No one challenged him. No one refused him. No one made him look weak until now. One human, Vexer said quietly. His voice was soft, but that softness was more dangerous than any shout. 6 of my elite warriors defeated by one small, soft creature. My lord, Krath stammered. He moved so fast. We could not even see. Vexer's mechanical arm shot out and grabbed Krath by the throat. The enforcer gasped, his feet leaving the ground. Excuses are for the weak, Vexer said. He held Krath there for a long moment, then dropped him to the floor. You will not fail me again. None of you will. He turned to his communications officer. Send word to every hunter and on-network. I want the best killers credits can buy. 50 of them. I want this human found, captured, and brought to me alive. His red eye flickered. I want to kill him myself. The hunt began. Cole had left orbital 7 weeks ago. He had taken repair work on a small mining colony called Kestros 4, a dusty rock at the edge of nowhere. The colony was struggling. Their equipment was old and broken. Their life support systems were failing. They could not afford proper mechanics. Cole did not charge them anything. The colonists were a mixed group. Some were miners who had come seeking fortune. Others were refugees who had fled violence in other systems. There were families with children, elderly folk who wanted peace, and young people looking for a fresh start. Beth and Greg had arrived 2 years ago with their daughter, Lucy. Greg worked in the mines. Beth taught the colony's children. Lucy was 7 years old, with bright eyes and an endless curiosity about everything. She found Cole fascinating. "Why do you only have two eyes?" she asked him one day while he was fixing a water pump. Cole smiled. "That's just how humans are built." "Can you see okay with only two?" "I manage." Lucy watched him work with intense concentration. "My mom says you're from very far away. She says no one knows where your planet is." "That's true. Earth is pretty remote. Do you miss it?" Cole's hands paused on the pump. For a moment, his eyes went distant, looking at something Lucy could not see. Then he blinked and returned to his work. "Sometimes," he said softly, "but I've got things to do here." The hunters arrived 3 weeks later. They came at night, dropping from orbit in stealth shuttles. 50 of the deadliest mercenaries in the sector, armed with the best weapons money could buy. There were Dreth warriors with plasma cannons, Krix assassins with poisoned blades, even a pair of Ven, gaseous creatures that could seep through walls and dissolve flesh on contact. They expected an easy capture. 1 human against 50 killers. The odds were laughable, but Cole had known they were coming. He had spotted their ships on the long-range sensors 3 days ago. He had watched their approach, tracked their landing zone, and counted their numbers. He had not told the colonists. He did not want them to panic. Instead, he had prepared. The mines beneath the colony stretched for miles, a maze of tunnels carved into the rock over decades. Cole spent 3 days exploring them, mapping every passage, noting every junction. He moved supplies. He set traps. He turned the mines into a killing ground. When the hunters came, Cole was waiting. The first team entered the main shaft confidently, their thermal vision cutting through the darkness. They expected to find a sleeping colony, an unsuspecting target. Instead, they found nothing. The colonists had been moved to a secure bunker deep underground. The buildings were empty. The human was nowhere to be seen. Then the lights went out. Cole had covered himself in mining coolant, masking his heat signature. In the darkness, he was invisible. The hunters stumbled over each other, their size and numbers suddenly working against them in the narrow tunnels. He struck from shadows. A quick blow to the neck, a blade across a throat, a trigger pulled on a rigged explosive. He moved like smoke, appearing and disappearing before anyone could react. The hunters began to panic. They fired wildly, hitting rock walls and sometimes each other. Their communications filled with screaming and confusion. They had trained for combat against other warriors, against ships and armies. They had not trained for this. This was not combat. This was being hunted. Cole used everything the mines offered. He collapsed tunnels to separate groups. He flooded sections with toxic gas from ruptured canisters. He turned the hunters' own weapons against them, grabbing guns from fallen enemies and using them until they ran dry. He took injuries. A blade caught his arm. A plasma bolt grazed his leg. A Krix managed to slash his chest before Cole broke its neck. But he kept moving. He kept fighting. He did not stop. Dawn came. The surviving hunters fled to their shuttles and escaped into orbit. 30-7 killers had entered the mines. 13 came out. Cole emerged into the morning light, covered in dust and blood. His wounds were wrapped in torn cloth. His eyes were exhausted but alert. He carried no weapons. He did not need them anymore. The colonists came out of their bunker slowly, not quite believing what they were seeing. Beth ran to Cole, her face pale with worry. "Are you hurt? Should I get the medical kit?" Cole shook his head. "I'll be fine. Humans heal fast." Lucy broke free from her father's grip and ran to Cole, wrapping her small arms around his leg. She was crying. "I was scared," she said. "I thought the bad people would hurt you." Cole knelt down slowly, wincing at his injuries. He put a gentle hand on Lucy's head. "Hey," he said softly. "I'm okay. The bad people are gone. They won't be coming back. Promise?" Cole looked at the sky, where the hunter ships were disappearing into the distance. His face hardened for just a moment, showing something cold and fierce beneath the gentle surface. "I promise." Greg approached, his mining pick still clutched in his hands. He had been ready to fight, to defend his family, though he knew he stood no chance against professional killers. "How did you do that?" he asked. There were so many of them. Cole stood up, lifting Lucy with him. She clung to his neck, still sniffling. "On Earth, we have a saying," Cole said. "Don't mistake kindness for weakness." He shifted Lucy to a more comfortable position. "I tried to be kind. I just wanted to be left alone, to fix things and help people. But they wouldn't let me." He looked at Greg with tired eyes. "So I stopped being kind." The colonists gathered around their protector. They had thought he was just a mechanic, a quiet drifter who was good with machines. They had not known what he was capable of. They had not known what humans could become when protecting those they cared about. Beth brought water and bandages. The colony's doctor, an elderly Valkyrie who had retired to this remote place for peace, began treating Cole's wounds. Cole submitted to the care without complaint, still holding Lucy in his arms. "What happens now?" Beth asked. "Will more of them come?" Cole looked at the horizon. Somewhere out there, Vexer was learning of his hunter's failure. The Syndicate Lord would not accept this defeat. He would want revenge. "Probably," Cole admitted. "But next time, I won't be alone." He did not explain what he meant, but there was something in his voice, a quiet certainty, that made the colonists believe him. Whatever was coming, they would face it together. Vexer's rage shook the walls of his throne room. He had sent 50 of the best killers in the sector. 37 had died. The humans still lived. The insult was unbearable. He called his war council together. 20 Dreth commanders, each one a veteran of countless battles, gathered around the tactical display. They looked at the holographic image of Kestros IV, a small dusty world that had suddenly become the most important place in the sector. "We will burn it," Vexer declared. "The colony, the mines, everything. We will turn that rock into ash and scatter it across the void." His flagship commander, a grizzled veteran named Torax, raised a concern. "My lord, a full fleet assault on a civilian colony will draw attention." "The Galactic Council. The Council is weak," Vexer snarled. "They talk while we act. By the time they respond, there will be nothing left but dust." He activated the fleet command channel. "All ships, prepare for jump. We move on Kestros 4 in 6 hours. 20 warships, 300 fighters, 10,000 Dreth warriors." An armada that had crushed entire civilizations, now focused on one small colony, and one stubborn human. Cole stood on the surface of Kestros 4 and watched the stars. He knew what was coming. The survivors of the hunt had been very clear about what would happen next. The colonists wanted to run. They wanted to load everyone onto the transport ships and flee to another system. But Cole knew it would not help. Vexer would follow them. He would hunt them across the galaxy until he got his revenge. Running would only delay the inevitable. So Cole had made some calls. The Valkyrie ship Shimmering Dawn dropped out of hyperspace first. Captain Zorath had not forgotten his debt. He had spent the months since his rescue upgrading his ship with weapons and armor, using credits that Cole had quietly donated from his repair work. The merchant vessel was now a fighting ship. "We heard you needed help," Zorath's voice crackled over the communication system. The Valkyrie paid their debts. More ships followed. Traders from Orbital 7, their hulls reinforced and their cargo holds filled with weapons. Mora, the bartender, had called in every favor she had earned over 60 years. 12 armed merchantmen, crewed by beings who had watched Cole stand up to the Dreth and decided they wanted to stand with him. And then, to everyone's shock, a massive cruiser emerged from hyperspace. It bore the golden seal of the Galactic Council. Cole stared at it for a long moment before his communication console crackled to life. "This is Counselor Yelleth of the Honori," a calm voice announced. "The Galactic Council has declared Kestros 4 a protected territory. Any attack on this colony will be considered an act of war against the Council itself." Cole found himself smiling. "Counselor, I don't think we've met." "We have not," Yelleth replied. "But I have studied your species extensively. I believe I understand what you are, Cole of Earth, and I believe the galaxy needs more beings like you." The fleet assembled in orbit around Kestros 4 was not large. Compared to Vexor's armada, it was almost insignificant. But it represented something that the Syndicate had never faced before. Unity.vel carry. Warriors standing beside Kethrai traders. Council peacekeepers flying formation with smugglers and merchants. Species that had never cooperated before, brought together by one human who asked for nothing but fuel and food. Vexor's fleet arrived in a blaze of light. 20 warships dropped out of hyperspace, their weapons already charging. The Syndicate Lord appeared on the general communication channel, his red eye blazing. "Fools," he broadcast. "You think this pathetic gathering can stop me? I have crushed fleets 10 times your size. I will destroy you all and leave your wreckage as a warning." Cole took the communication console from the Colonial Administrator. His voice was calm when he spoke. "Vexor, this is Cole. I'm going to give you one chance. Turn around. Go home. Leave these people alone, and we can all walk away from this." Vexor laughed. It was an ugly, mechanical sound. "You dare threaten me? You are one soft creature. I am Vexor, Lord of the Syndicate, conqueror of 12 systems." "I know who you are," Cole said. "I'm telling you who I am. I'm a human, and humans don't give up. We don't surrender. We don't stop fighting until the job is done or we're dead." He paused. "You've lost 37 of your best killers already. How many more are you willing to lose?" The channel went silent for a moment. "All ships," Vexor commanded. "Attack." The battle was short and brutal. Vexor had superior numbers, but he had never fought an enemy like this before. The Allied fleet did not try to match him ship for ship. They used the asteroid field around Kestros 4 for cover. They targeted engines and weapons instead of trying to destroy ships outright. They fought smart. Cole had spent days working with Zorath and the other captains, planning tactics based on what he knew about Dreth combat doctrine. The Dreth relied on overwhelming force. They charged straight at their enemies and crushed them through sheer power. The Allied fleet refused to let them do that. They dodged. They retreated. They lured Syndicate ships into traps. They made Vexor's forces fight on their terms, not his dot, and then the Council cruiser opened fire. The vessel was a peacekeeper ship, designed to defend rather than attack. But its shields were the strongest in the sector, and its weapons could hit targets with pinpoint accuracy. It disabled Vexor's flagship with 3 precise shots, crippling the engines and weapons without destroying the ship. The Syndicate fleet began to break apart. Without Vexor coordinating them, the individual captains lost their nerve. Some jumped to hyperspace. Others surrendered. A few fought on and were destroyed. By the time the battle ended, 14 Syndicate ships had been captured or disabled. 6 had fled. Not a single Allied vessel had been destroyed. Vexor was dragged from his crippled flagship in restraints, his mechanical arm deactivated, his red eye flickering with rage. He was brought to the surface of Kestros 4, where Cole and the colonists waited. The Syndicate Lord glared at the human with pure hatred. "This changes nothing. The Syndicate will come for you. Others will take my place. You will never be safe." Cole looked at him with tired eyes. He had not slept in days. His wounds from the previous battle still ached. but he stood straight, surrounded by the people he had protected. Maybe, Cole said, but here's the thing about humans. We build things. We make friends. We help people. He gestured at the allied fleets still visible in the sky, the crews of a dozen species who had come to fight for a colony they had never seen before. You ruled through fear. Look how that worked out. Counselor Yelleth approached, her 4 eyes studying Cole with intense curiosity. The council will take custody of Vexer. He will face trial for his crimes. Good. Cole turned away from the defeated warlord, dismissing him from his thoughts. The celebration that night was unlike anything Kestros 4 had ever seen. Aliens of every species gathered in the colony square, sharing food and drinks and stories. Velkari warriors compared scars with Kethrani traders. Council officers danced awkwardly with colonial miners. Lucy found Cole sitting alone on a hill overlooking the festivities. He was watching the stars again, his expression distant. "Why are you up here by yourself?" she asked, sitting down beside him. "Just thinking." "About what?" Cole was quiet for a moment. "About home. About the people I used to know. About why I'm out here instead of back there." Lucy leaned against him. "Do you want to go back?" "Sometimes." He put an arm around her shoulders. "But then I remember why I left. And I remember all the people out here who need help." He smiled down at her. "People like you." Counselor Yelleth found them there an hour later. She stood at a respectful distance, waiting for Cole to acknowledge her. "Counselor," he said, "something I can do for you?" "I came to make you an offer," Yelleth said. "The Council would like to establish formal contact with Earth. We believe you species could be valuable allies, and we would like you to serve as our ambassador." Cole laughed softly. "I'm not much of a diplomat." "Perhaps not. But you are exactly what we need. Someone who helps without expecting reward. Someone who builds bridges instead of walls. Someone who shows the galaxy what humans can be at their best." She held out a small device, a communication unit bearing the Council seal. "Think about it. The offer will remain open." Cole took the device and looked at it for a long time. An ambassador. A representative of Earth to the entire galaxy. It was not something he had ever imagined. But then again, he had never imagined any of this. A mechanic from Earth standing on an alien world, surrounded by friends from a dozen different species. He thought about his father, who had taught him to always help those who needed it. He thought about his home, a small blue planet that had shaped humans into what they were. He thought about the future and what it might hold. "I'll think about it," he said. Yelleth nodded and turned to leave. Then she paused and looked back. "For what it is worth," she said, "my report to the Council included a warning about your species. I told them not to underestimate humans." Her 4 eyes met his too. "I believe that warning will be studied for generations." Cole watched her go, then looked up at the stars again. Somewhere out there, 8 billion humans were living their lives on a small blue planet. They did not know what was waiting for them in the galaxy. They did not know about the wonders and the dangers, the friends and the enemies. But they would learn. Humans always did. And when they finally came, Cole knew the galaxy would never be the same.